Hi, 5th grade. It's Mrs. Scotchbutt, and I wanted to make a quick video to review dividing decimals with you. I know that this is a topic that we've been discussing for the past several weeks and that we actually have already had our test on this, but I didn't want to move on and jump into new curriculum with this being the first week that we're doing online virtual learning, basically. I felt like that would be a little overwhelming for all of us. So I thought that it would be better to spend another week on reviewing dividing decimals. And it's always good to really make sure that we have a firm grasp on these concepts because it will serve you well next year in middle school and high school and beyond. So let's dig right in and look at the first page, okay? The first thing I really want you to remember and to think about is that whenever you're talking about dividing, sometimes, especially in first, second, and third grade, when your teacher was trying to get you to understand how to divide, we often thought, okay, we have an amount and then we're going to divide it and we're going to break it into groups, right? Well, whenever you think about dividing decimals, it's different than dividing by a whole number. When you're dividing decimal, the divisor can no longer represent the number of groups. The divisor is now a decimal, so we have to change our idea of this and say that it is now the size of the group. So it's how many we're going to put in each group. And then the quotient is going to be how many groups that we actually made. Okay. And this should look familiar to you, considering that was on my board for the last several weeks on my whiteboard, right? You remember me writing, it might have been the exact problem actually. And I even wrote above it, the dividend is the total amount, how much you shade. And they've shown you that over here with this visual. They've shaded 1 and 2/10, and hopefully you can see that they've denoted that this is one whole, right? This is 100, so that's a whole. And then they shaded 2/10 of the other whole. Okay, so 1 and 2/10, and then they divided. They said, hey, each group is going to have 3/10 inside of it, right? And you can see that they've done that here. Here's one group of 3/10. Here is 2 groups of 3/10, 3 groups of 3/10, and 4 groups of 3/10, right? And so you end up with 4 groups. So that is your quotient. And when you're dealing with dividing by decimals, you need to keep that in mind, right? And you can prove that this works, right? You can say 3/10 times 4 is going to equal 12/10. And basically what they've done is they've converted these decimal into whole numbers. It's another strategy, right? We're saying, hey, 1 and 2/10 divided by 3/10. We could say, hey, we're going to multiply by 10, move the decimal, do the same on this side. Okay, and then we're going to say 12/10 divided by 3/10 is 4. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of go and review that with you. All right, let's move forward. Okay, the next one, I wanted to give you this chart because it is kind of a cheat sheet, okay? And I shouldn't call it a cheat because it is a strategy, but you do need to know the why behind it, and that's why I wanted to take the time and do those visuals with you. Why does this work, okay? So when you're talking about dividing by a whole number, if you want to look up here with me, 27 divided by 1 obviously is 27, right? And then you're going to divide by a power of 10. 27 divided by 10, it's going to change to 2.7. You're now going to move the decimal to the left to make your number smaller. Because of course, if you have 27 things and you break it into 10 equal groups, you're going to have a smaller amount in each group, right? I mean, that's basic division. We all know that. So then you start to see the pattern, right? When you're dividing by 10 to the second, which is 10 times 10, okay, you're going to move the decimal to the left 2 times. And then when you divide by 10 to the third, which is 10 times 10 times 10, or 1,000, you will move the decimal to the left 3 times. The exponent shows you how many times to move the decimal, or you can look at the zeros, right? But you do need to know why that works, because you are splitting it in 2 groups, and in each group you're going to have a smaller number. And I think that is why you got a little confused when we first started talking about this. So look down here at the bottom with me. Okay, look at this chart. Because once you start saying, obviously we know 7 3/10 divided by 1, you're going to get the same thing, 7 3/10. But look here, if we say 7 3/10 divided by 1/10, what? I get 73? Well, how could I get 73 if I only have 7 3/10 to start with? That doesn't make sense, right? And that was many of your questions in the class. I do remember when we first started with this work. So let's break this down. Let's talk about this, okay? And let's show you that this does work, okay? So I'm going to write it out. First of all, I'm going to erase that. And then I'm going to write this out. I'm going to say 7 3/10 divided by 1/10. Okay. And basically, I'm going to go ahead and show you just a reminder. Let's use, I don't know, purple? Let's use purple. Okay. This, right, this is going to be the total. This is the amount that we're dealing with. Okay. And now, because we have a decimal, this is going to be how many is in each group. Amount in each group. I apologize for the penmanship here. Okay, and then the quotient. The quotient is going to be the number of groups. Okay. All right, so let's get started. And like I've told you so many times, I'm a very visual learner, so that's why I drew some boxes on the left side of my page, so bear with me here. Okay, so as you guys know from our work in class, these basically what we're saying, these are each square is 100, right? 100 cents and $1, so 100 it represents 1. So I'm going to split these just so you can kind of visualize this. 1 2 3 4 5 2 3 4 5, so into 10, right? At least into 10, so we can understand what we're talking about. And like I said, just bear with me here while I cut these. One, two, three. Okay, and you know, just I'm going to ask you to pretend that each of these are cut to save some time. Okay, but basically what we're saying is we have 7 wholes, okay, to start with. So if 100 is a whole, right, this is 1 whole, 2 wholes, apologize for the coloring, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we have dealing with a whole number. 7 is in the ones place, so we just shaded 7 wholes. And then we need 3/10 of the other wholes. So 1, 2, 3, 3/10 of the other whole, right? Okay, and then we are going to divide. We're going to say, hey, we have 7 3/10 total, and we're going to put 1/10 into each group, okay? And we can understand, like I said, just try and envision that all of these are broken into tenths, right? So this is 1/10. Okay, so that's one group because we're breaking 1/10 into each group. So that's one group. And then 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, 5 groups, 6 groups, 7 groups, 8 groups, 9 groups, 10 groups. So every whole has 10 groups of 10. So there's 10 groups of 10, here's 10 groups of 10, 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 1 group of 10, 2 groups of 10, 3 groups of 10. And if we were to add this up, right, we'd say 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 73. So we have 73 groups, okay? So there's one way of thinking about it. Okay, another way you could think about this, right, is you could think, okay, we're just changing this into a whole number, basically, right? We're saying 73, oops, where's the decimal here? There we go, right? 1/10, yeah, 7 3/10 divided by 1/10, okay. Make sure I don't make any mistakes here. So 7 3/10, right? We could change that to a whole number by multiplying by 10, okay, and moving the decimal to the right to make it into 73, and then we have to do the same thing over here, so that makes it into 1. So now we're saying 73 tenths, right, divided by 1/10. Why did I write 77? 73 divided by 1 is 73. Okay, so there's 2 different strategies. Well, really there's 3, because you could use this little chart that I like to call a cheat. It's really not a cheat, it's a strategy, but you do need to know the why behind of it, and that's why we drew the picture, okay? Or you can move the decimal by multiplying by 10. Okay, so what I want from you, let's get a sparkly color. I want you to try number 1 and number 2. Okay, so try those 2 problems. I know you guys are math rock stars, so this is probably way too easy for you, but try number 1 and 2. Post in Dojo your answers to number 1 and 2 for me, and then we'll talk about it, okay? I am going to make another math video, another decimal video for you guys probably tomorrow, so be looking for that. But try number 1 and 2, post it in Class Dojo, post any questions that you may have. And also, thank you for those of you who've already posted the books, the novels that you've been reading. I loved watching your videos and looking at your pictures and your comments about why you're reading the book, what you like about the book. You've done a fabulous job, so thank you for doing that. All right, good work, and I look forward to seeing your math answers in Dojo.